Hello, Math 8. So today is Monday, October the 5th, and I wanted to take you back through, rotations again. And so there's a couple things that I wanted to make sure we had. Before we start today, though, I'd really like you to try to find your Mission Impossible. So the one that looks like this, 5 through 8. And then I was just going to take you through a couple of review problems with this, and then we'll work on rotations. And then your homework tonight is a really fantastic rotation Desmos that takes you through all of that. And then we're thinking about giving you guys a quiz Friday, but we'll basically end up reviewing for it for 2 days. So that way everybody ends the 9 weeks with like a great quiz score, no problem. And then just make sure if you need tutorials you're reaching out this week, I'm going to try to open up a Google Meet for us Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and just to make sure that you don't need any extra help. So I'm going to work for you Mission Impossible 5 and then give you a chance to try 6. You can pause the video. Then I'm going to go over with you the rules for Mission Impossible 7 and then give you time to work on Mission Impossible 8. Then we're going to work on the lesson together. Okay, so remember, if you have a rule like this means you're moving right 3 blocks. So you're adding 3 to x. And this means you're moving down 6. So I'm subtracting 6 from y. So I could use my Desmos. Negative 5 plus 3 gives me negative 2. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. And then I could come over and say negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Okay? The same thing for the next one. If it's x minus 4, it means I'm moving left 4 and down 3. So I'm subtracting 4 for x, subtracting 3 for y, and I'm left with negative 7, negative 8 for y. Negative 8 minus 4, they're both negative, I have to add. So negative 12, negative 2. Okay? Now if I translate with a rule like this, if I'm sliding the shape, this means nothing happens to x, and you're moving down 5 places. So this is minus 5, this is minus 5. So that's going to give me 12 and 0, negative 3 and 5. Okay? Now, I want you to try that. I know that was a little fast because I can kind of do integers, but you can use Desmos. See if you can figure out what these new coordinates would be. Okay? And then when you're ready, make sure I move it this way. When you're ready, press play. All right, so promise me you've actually done this. So I'm going to come over and take 5 away from both of these. Add 4 to y. And remember that this means you're going to move left 5 blocks. And then you're going to move up 4 blocks. So this would be 3, negative 3. This would be negative 17, positive 3. And then if you look at this rule, it's minus 4. So you're moving left 4, up 7. So I'm going to put minus 4 for my x. Whoops. Plus 7 for my second coordinate. So this is negative 9, 14. 5 minus 4 is 1, and 3 plus 7 is 10. And then if I look at this, x minus 8, that means I'm going to be moving this shape left 8, left 8. So this would be negative 12, negative 7, negative 3, positive 3. Okay, let's take a look at reflecting each point across the x-axis. So if I'm reflecting across the x stays the same, right? So x stays the same. Your y value changes. If I'm reflecting across my y-axis, x flips, y stays the same. So I just need to circle that second number, that y coordinate, because remember it's in the form xy because y stays the same. So this would be negative 5, negative 2. This would be negative 4, positive 3. And then I'm going to do a different rule for y because y stays the same. So I'm going to circle x because x is changing. So the signs just flip. So this is negative 3, 0. This would be positive 7, 2. Okay? Excuse me. All right, if I look at reflecting across the x, the same thing. X stays the same. The y values change. So I'm going to circle that second number so I know that's the sign I'm changing. So this would be negative 9, negative 3. And this would be 4, negative 6. Now try the same idea for Mission Impossible 8. So your x sign flips, y stays the same. If you're reflecting across x stays the same, but your y value changes, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and try 8. And then we'll take a look at how you did. So if you reflect this one, that would be positive 2, negative 2. This would be the opposite of negative 8, or positive 8, negative 9. This would be 5, negative 1, 0, 4. So then if you reflect across the y-axis, negative 5, negative 8. Opposite of negative 4 is positive 4, positive 7. Ugh. All right, so now we're going to talk about, I'm trying to make sure if this is going to make it worse or better, rotations. So I'm going to have you turn in your math book, whoops, sorry about that, to page 147. And we're just going to kind of bring together everything we've talked about this. Okay, 147. So it says graph a point anywhere in the first quadrant. I'm just going to say, let's just graph the coordinate. 1, 2 as our starting value. So I'm going to come over and go over 1 up to, now that's my original coordinate. So I'm going to put x, y, and I'm also going to put 1, 2. Now I'm going to use my patty paper that we talked about to kind of move this shape around. I'm going to get my Sharpie out, which hopefully I still have, and I'm going to trace it so we can see what's going on here. Sharpie, 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 Sharpie. This on my Sharpie. Otherwise, I'll use my marker. So we're going to talk about what happens when we shift this thing around. So here's my y. Here's my x. And I'm going to put my point right here. Now it says step 1, do a 90-degree counterclockwise turn. So I'm just going to put my pencil in the middle, and I'm going to turn it. Look at that. 1 turn to the left. Look what's happening to y and x. Y goes from being perfectly positive to being negative. And y and x even switch locations. X is still positive though. The sun hasn't changed, but you can see y changes with x. So I'm going to lift my paper up and I'm going to put a dot at negative 2, 1. And I'm going to change colors so you can kind of visualize what's going on. Okay. And I'm just going to draw a line back to the point and put 90. And I'm going to label this as my 90-degree counterclockwise rotation. Okay, so you can see that your x and y coordinate flipped and your y became negative. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to put negative yx because those coordinates flipped around and this became negative 2, 1. Now we're going to look and see what happens if I rotate this around twice. So this is 1 turn backwards. And this is 2 turns backwards. And we're going to see what that does. And then you know that a 360 is all the way around a circle, right? So that's going to take you back to xy. All right, so I'm going to go back to my original coordinate. I'm going to rotate it once and then twice across. You can see that almost makes a straight line with where I started. That's my 180 rotation. So I know that this is going to be negative 1, negative 2. Okay. I'm going to put 180-degree counterclockwise rotation, draw it down, do my little line that way, and I'm going to write this becomes negative 1, negative 2. Now the beauty of the 180 is that it's the same, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow. If you go forwards 2, which we call clockwise, or if you go backwards 2 rotations, it gives you the same rule every time, okay? The only thing that changes is the sign of x and y. So I come down, I'm going to put negative 1, negative 2. I'm going to write my starting point. And I know that x and y stay in the same place. The signs just flip. So that's kind of hard to see, but it's negative x, negative y. Okay? Now we're going to talk about 270. So we're going to turn this thing not once, not twice, but 3 turns. Backward. Backward. Like that. Okay. So if we take our cute little pie paper here, we're going to turn it left once. Turn it left twice. That's 2 90s. 3 90-degree turns is 270. And I can see that looks like a backwards right angle, or 90 plus 90 plus 90. So I'm going to come over. And I'm going to put 2, negative 1. And I'm going to put, this is a 270-degree counterclockwise rotation. And then you can look at this and say, I noticed that y and x traded places. You can even look at that with the paper. Y and x are on the wrong place, right? Y is still positive, but look at x. What did x now become? Negative, remember? So I can see that this would also be 90-degree forward clockwise, which we'll talk about tomorrow, but 270. So let's look and see what happened with our rule. If I rotate one turn, y and x switch spots, the y value goes from being positive to being negative. 180 is a lot easier because x and y just stay in the same spot. The signs just flip. 270, y and x trade places, but x goes from being positive 1 to being negative 1. So that rule on the bottom would be y negative x or 2 negative 1. Okay? Now we're going to let you kind of try this. So you're going to draw a shape and you're going to rotate it. And then we'll talk about switching some points around, making sure that you're comfortable. If we just give you the coordinates, could you use the rule and kind of flip these around and change the sign for y so you can kind of see that y went from being positive to negative. And here x went from being positive to negative. So if you turn the page in your book, excuse me, we're now on page 148. And I love, love, love your book because it does do a beautiful job teaching you about rotation. So I'm going to come over and draw my line. Okay, and it says I have a point 3 up 4. And I want you to label that A because we're going to graph this first. To the right, 6 up 1. I want you to label that B. To the right, 4 up 9. There you go. Ooh, why did I put little dashes? My bad. A, B, and C. Now what you're going to do is you're going to rotate this 90 degree or one turn backwards with your patty paper, write your new coordinates. Then you're going to rotate this back twice, 2 turns or 180, and write your coordinates. And take a look about what's happening to your rule. The book's going to end up asking you, are the triangles congruent? Do they preserve congruence? Is it the same shape, just facing a different direction? So I want you to go ahead and pause the video, and when you're ready, press play. Okay, so I'm going to come around. I'm going to trace my shape. Oops. Making sure we can see it. Let me grab a different color. We'll grab red. I'm going to label A. I'm going to label C. And I'm going to label, whoops, B. Now I'm going to do one turn to the left. So I put my pencil in the middle. One turn to the left looks like this. You can see y and x trade places again. Y goes from being positive to those negative numbers. You see that? So I'm going to lift my paper and write my point. So A goes from being 3, 4, okay, to being negative 4, positive 3. Okay, so here's my A. And if I make that one turn to the left, that's what that looks like. So negative 4, positive 3. Put your dot, and I'm going to write that at the bottom. Then I have to go back. B goes from being 6, 1 to being negative 1, positive 6. And then I'm going to come down and put negative 1, positive 6. And then C goes from being 4, 9 to being negative 9, positive 4. All right, I'm going to come over. Negative 9, positive 4. Making sure I got this a little nice and neat. I'll label this a little bit better. C's here. Okay, and then I can just draw my line down and see that that is a 90-degree angle, right? So I'm going to come over. I'm going to put my rule. Y and X flip places, and Y becomes negative. All right, let's look at 180 rotation. So I take my original sheet of paper and put it here. Put my pencil in the middle. I'm going to turn it to the left one time. I'm going to turn it to the left twice. All right. And then I'm going to lift up my paper and I'm going to draw. So A went from being 3, 4 to being -3, -4. Okay. B went from being 6, 1 to being -6, -1. And C goes from being 4, 9 to being -4, -9. It's kind of hard to see. And then I'm going to connect that together. And then you can kind of see if I were to connect this, this would be a beautiful 180-degree angle. So I'm going to come down and add that to my chart. So this would be -3, -4. No flipping occurs. The flips only occur at 90 and 270, the order flips. This would be -6, -1. And this would be -4, -9. Okay, and your rule would be X and Y both flip their signs, or X and Y are both negative. And then one more thing I need to make sure, are all triangles congruent? Yes. The only thing that's different about rotations is that they're just orientated a different way, so that they're both facing a different direction. Not a wrong direction, but a different direction. One more thing I probably need to do, I'm going to come up here and put some more dashes to show that I've actually turned this twice, because we did 2 rotations. Always make sure you label the corners of your triangle and label them. Now here's where it gets a little bit challenging for students. So if you turn the page, you're going to have to use those rules and think about flipping the coordinates without looking at the shape. So on page 149, A says, if you're going to rotate this 90-degree counterclockwise, what are the coordinates? And I'm going to encourage you to write that rule, -yx. Okay? Think about how you can use what we talked about with that rule to predict what this would be. How did you determine the coordinates without graphing the triangle? Okay? Then you're going to look at C, and it's the same coordinates that you start with. Okay? And it says now you're going to rotate this 180 or 2 turns backwards. So the opposite of X and the opposite of Y. How did you determine the coordinates of the image without graphing the triangle? Okay? So I want you to pause the video and try this. See if you can flip the coordinates around, change your Y sign. See if you can keep X and Y in the same place for 180. Just flip the sign. And then when you're ready, press play. Okay, so Scouts Honor, you promise you've done this, because this is really good practice. So I know I need to flip around 10 to -7. So I'm going to flip Y and X around because that's my rule. Then Y goes from being positive to being negative. I look at E, same thing. I have to flip around my Y and my X value. So this becomes 5, -5 because they're trading spots. And then I have to change that Y value from positive to negative. And then I do the same thing here, -8, -1. I need to flip my Y sign to positive. And it said, how did we just figure that out? You flip the X and Y locations or coordinates. You flip the X and Y locations or coordinates. Number 2, once you do that, you change the sign for Y. Okay? So for a 90-degree counterclockwise rotation, once you know the coordinate, you flip it, and then you change the sign for Y. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and erase this so I don't confuse myself, and I'm going to rewrite this right here. And then the 180 is just so wonderfully nice because you don't have to worry about flipping. You keep everything in the same place as far as X and Y, but the signs just change. So this goes from being -7 to being +7. This goes from being +10, -10. This goes from -5 to +5, +5 to -5, -1, +1, and 8. Then it says, how did you determine the coordinates of the image without graphing the triangle? Step 1, keep X and Y in the same place. Step 1. Step 2, change the signs for X and Y. Okay, so you keep X and Y in the same place, and you change the signs for X and Y. All right, so it's a little tough. I was looking to see if the talk would be good, but we might just stop there. So let's flip back and go back over the rotation rules again. So if you're rotating 90 degrees or one turn backwards, it's negative YX. If you're going 2 turns backwards, it's negative X, negative Y. If you go 3 times backwards, it's Y negative X. And if you rotate all the way back, it's XY. And make sure you've got your graph labeled in color so you can see what's going on. So today, make sure that you do that rotation Desmos and go slow through it, because it will take you all the way back through here, and that's going to be your homework for tonight. Please reach out if you need tutorials, and if you're a remote student or if you're a face-to-face student and you need help, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.